welcome to another episode of the Corner Talk. And today we have Dr. Gabby Yearwood from the Department of Anthropology at the University of Pittsburgh. And Dr. Yearwood specializes in sports, race, and the experiences of Black athletes in the U.S. Mm-hmm. And so today, we had the privilege a few months ago to have one of the greatest athletes, right? Athletes activists, and the history of this country. We had the privilege of having him at Pitt. Mm-hmm. And Gabby, I'll let you speak in terms of what does John Carlos, what does he mean to you?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me on the series. I'm really excited to talk about this. John Carlos he's been the model for me in terms of who from that image, first learning about that protest at the '68 Olympics, of what you could be as, not only as an athlete, but as a person, as somebody who is in incredible ways and in small ways sort of willing to speak up against injustice, inequality, oppression, and who carried like an enormous burden for his whole life, from the time he protested until the time we met him. Right. Meeting him was surreal. Like before we had dinner with him, I met him at the basketball game, and I couldn't even introduce myself. Like, it was just like, I can't believe I'm standing in front of this person who's been a poster in my life, right? Because we all know that image of the black fisted gloves.
Sure. But then my question for you is, what didn't you know? And what did you find out? Like, what was your surprise when you met, like, John Carlos?
Almost everything. Everything we talked about. Like, it wasn't... There was, when people ask me about it, I'm like, well, do you want the Martin Luther King story? Do you want the Malcolm X story? Do you want the Fidel Castro story? Do you want the story about his mom? Do you want the story about his children? Do you want a story about everything that happened after that protest? Hearing him talk about the Australian athlete who was on the podium with him, mm-hmm. and talking about him as his brother, speaking at his funeral, and how much he meant to him, and how much his protest in that moment alongside him and Tommy Smith meant to him, and that he went back to Australia and continued that fight. Hearing him talk about understanding, like having these meetings with like Martin Luther King, like being brought into meetings as a young person, and having the understanding that it didn't matter that he was an athlete, like he was a part of the civil rights struggle. And they very much included him in that, and they're like, well, how do you want to be a part of this struggle? How are you going to use your experiences in sport to be a part of this struggle? Hearing him talk about eventually getting his mom to visit Cuba, where they were from, and he was like, I'm Juan Carlos, not John Carlos, and I was like, oh, like hadn't even thought about that. And being welcomed in Cuba as this representation of being a revolutionary and a resistance fighter, and getting a message from Fidel Castro is like, sorry, I can't meet you personally, but the country is yours, and this is your home. Wow. And so, but also like how proud John Carlos was to bring his mom there, right? And it was more about that than anything. It wasn't about the notoriety, it wasn't about Fidel Castro, but this was his mom's homeland, and he got to bring his mom there to visit. And he talked a lot about his mom, and who she was as a person, how much that influenced him, growing up in New York as a kid, and all the things that he struggled with, and fighting in that way as a kid about like housing rights and how they should be treated. And so talking about how important family was to him, his life afterwards, and the impact that podium demonstration had on his wife at the time and his children. Mm-hmm. Like his children were getting bullied in school by teachers when they discovered who his children were. And his children didn't know who he was. It wasn't until they would read about it in textbooks, right. And they'd come home and they'd say, Dad, who are you? And he was like, and he said, people are confused as to why I don't share it. He's like, well, that wasn't their life. This is my life. And he's like, when they need to know, they'll know. But finding out like teachers who were mistreating his kids, and him having to go up to schools and talk to teachers and say, hey, if you got a problem with me, deal with me. Like, you don't take it out on my children. And seeing that kind of like basically not being employed until the 1980s. Like, he was ostracized in the United States from 68 until almost the 1984 Olympic Games in LA, where somebody, I think who was the mayor at the time, or somebody he knew in the track world, brought him into the planning for the LA Olympics. And that started his sort of next phase of work. Before that, he just worked lots of like odd jobs wherever he worked. He did a lot of community work, worked a lot with youth, but was kept out of any significant spaces until he was brought in '84, and then that sort of launched him. Everyone going, oh yeah, this guy's a hero. This guy is somebody we should admire. Him and Tommy Smith, and then when they started really getting the recognition that they deserved, right? And people acknowledging what it meant to stand up in the 1960s.
Right.
And that those conversations were happening well before the Olympics, and people figuring out how to protest and how thoughtful, intentional each part of that protest was for him and others who protested during those games.
That's amazing. But Gabby, see, the thing is, thank you for this. I think what I want to share with the audience is part of that interview, part of really like John Carlos speaking to us, and because people will be surprised to see how much he cares, and what a strategist he is, because he is a strategist for community empowerment. He's a strategist for community empowerment. So on that note, Gabby, I want to say thank you for contextualizing what the audience will see in the next 30 minutes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to thank you blacks for killing one another. They give us time now to go take our families to the beach. So in other words, they tell you you're doing a great job by killing yourselves. A lot of times, we don't have the opportunity to communicate to youngsters, you guys' age, but you have that opportunity. And you have to be creative to tell them how they can see themselves. Let them see the talents that they have that you observe from the side. Like, for instance, I was telling them the other day, when I was teaching, I used to see guys roll them dice. Never went to class, but rolled them dice. And it made me think about my days in the street. And I said to this guy, I said to him, I said, man, let me ask you a question. You ever heard of a CPA? No? What's a CPA? I said, well, he has a lot to do with numbers. And it looked like, you rolling them dice, you could read them numbers pretty good. I said, but you never heard of a CPA? I said, no. I said, man, a CPA can start out making $80,000, $90,000 just working for somebody. And inside of 2 years, he can have $1.5 million business of his own. What's that? I'm interested in that. $1 million. I said, yeah, man, a CPA is a certified public accountant. What does the CPA do? I said, well, they do the audits. They audit the grocery stores, they audit the drug stores, they audit the Board of Education, they audit the hospital, they audit everybody. And they could even do your taxes. I see. So what I'm trying to say to you guys is you have to make them realize, man, even though you think life is bad for you, it might be bad for you because you didn't look in the basket and see what gifts God gave you. Okay? That's for your job to communicate to them and tell them, saying, man, I see bigger and better things than you. I grew up with you. I know you. I know where your heart is. You can do better than you're doing. Encourage them. There's so many individuals right now that's brilliant, that's wasting away because no one is magnetizing them and telling them, say, man, you could do this work that I'm doing in school. Why do you go and tell them? A lot of times, if you have somebody that's your age group and you went to school with them, I would think that you would want to do a business one day with somebody you grew up with, somebody you knew. Understand? Like, for instance, when I was in school, grade school, and back in the day, I was going through a transition where the drugs was running through Harlem. A lot of parents was missing in action. A lot of kids was raising their brothers and sisters. So when you had a test, like if your teacher says it's a spelling test going tomorrow, you might not have an opportunity to go home and be in the comfort of your house and study for that test because there's so much friction going in the house. Mom and dad might be arguing. Dad might be gone. You got to raise your brother and sister, and you didn't get a chance to study that test. But you go to the school and say, hey man, did you study them words? Say, yeah man, say, I didn't get a chance to do it. Now he know why I didn't get a chance to do it because his environment is pretty much the same. He said, I got the words. So let me copy your words. Now why am I asking him to let me copy his words? The main reason is because I have to pass that test today. I have all the time in the world to learn how to spell them words. For instantaneously, I need to pass that test today. And then the teacher come up and the teacher say, John, cover up your paper. Don't let Billy see your paper. And you covering up the paper. Teacher don't understand why you need to pass this test. I can learn these words. But the pressure that they put on John by telling John to cover up his paper, we in the state right now where we can't communicate with one another. You notice black people don't never say, man, let's buy, when Detroit was in defunct economically, and they had all those buildings there, all 5,000 office buildings in one building. They're selling the property for like $2 million. You mean to tell me we don't have enough basketball players, or football players, or writers that can pool money and buy them buildings? You know why they don't do it? Because that teacher tells you to cover up that paper. I can't let Billy see how much money I got. I got to cover up. If I'm covering up, we ain't gonna never get together and do nothing. Understand? I'm not saying buy a building for me, I'm saying buy a building for us. But I can't do it by myself. That's the way it is in being a civil activist. I can take the point, but I can't do it by myself. Why? Because it's a large spectrum that I'm trying to reach. I might be fortunate sometimes to go to the Olympic Games, you can make a statement that's universal. But how often do we have that opportunity? So we have to have soldiers in the field. That's why I look at you and say, hey, my job is to recruit. If I'm got 1,000 people in this room, my mission is to reach one of y'all. Why? Because you could change the course of history. You don't need a band or a revolution to do it. All you have to do is be that shining star where somebody can see you on the other end of the earth that might be going through the same oppression you're going through, or might be even deeper than the oppression you're going through. But the difference is they don't have no roadmap. They don't have a blueprint in terms of how do we deal with this oppression that's upon us. We've been dealing for some time. So if you stand up there and you make a bold move, it's going to vibrate out to where that person is, and they're going to say, oh, now I have a better understanding in terms of what I need to do to get some sort of equality. And you ain't got to burn no buildings down. You ain't got to shoot nobody up. All you have to do is be consistent in your drive and don't be deterred, because they're going to put people out there to throw blocks in your way. They're trying to stop you. Don't get mad at them. Work on your dimples. When they see you smiling, you letting them know, I see what you're trying to do, but man, I ain't got time for you. I got to go around you. But when they see your dimples, now they frustrated because they thought they was breaking you down, and they ain't doing nothing but pump life into you. And then next thing you know, it'll be easing up, trying to be your man now. Why? Because you're on the right track. I want to be with you. I'm coming up, getting close to you, but I don't know verbally how to tell you that I see it now and I want to be a part of what you are. That's your job, to educate them. Education is the best thing going for anything that you're trying to do, for the simple reason that if you get up and make a statement, the media are going to come back, say, we got him, he's vulnerable now. Hey, Willie, you made a statement such and such and such. What grounds do you have to make that statement? You just can't make a blind statement. You have to have facts to back the statement up. But if you don't have no knowledge and they put that camera in your face and that microphone in your face and you stand there scratching your head, what do you look like to the rest of the world? He's a damn fool, they're gonna say. Why? Because he had to come back and retract the statement that he made. Okay? And that's the way they want you to go into society. You just think that you could just get up and say anything. You can't just say anything. When we did our thing, this October will be 55 years since I was out there as a little track guy. And when we decided that we needed to make some changes, originally when we talk about making changes, we were talking about making changes because we had racial issues and social issues that was taking place in the city of San Jose, California. I used to call it, when I went there, one horse town. The deal was, if we went to the campus, I was married, I had a young daughter, I couldn't get a place to live. I'm going there to serve the school. I'm going there to build a reputation for the school, but I can't get a place to live, merely because of the color of my skin. So I got to go find me a white guy that's my friend and tell him, man, I can't get a spot. Go find me an apartment. Is that necessary? Should I have to do that? That kind of reminded me of my dad. He told me he was in the First World War. He said racial situation was bad before he went in the First World War. He went and he said he seen his buddies die, seen him come home, maimed, crippled, come back. He said we was in a deeper hole when we got back than we were before we left. Is it your responsibility to turn up the volume and speak on that issue? You ain't got to throw no rocks at nobody. But you can say, hey man, what is the purpose of me going to America to represent America and I come home and find America that doesn't represent me? I pay taxes. I'm a part of this society. But am I supposed to be closed-eyed, put a sock in my mouth and not expound upon what I'm experiencing? If you don't ask for nothing, you don't get nothing. Old man told me, he said a long time ago, he said, son, let me just tell you, in the early stages, a shy man is starved to death. If you waiting on them to come and give you something and you're not asking for it or not demanding it, you think they're gonna just say, oh, let me go take care of Ricky over here. Let me make sure Ricky got something in his pocket. It don't work like that. Education, I tell kids every day, there's two types of food. It's food for your body, it's food for your mind. I asked him, I said, what happens if you don't eat food? Well, we die. Correct, move up to the front of the class. But before you go, let me ask you the second half of the question. What happens if you don't eat food for your mind? Then he's stunned, I don't know. I said, you wish you were dead. Now, why would I say you wish you were dead? If you don't have any knowledge of food, what do you have to contribute to society? People that's got something going on, man, they ain't got time to stop to see why you ain't shaking and baking. They trying to maintain for them and it's their own. So if you don't have anything to bring to the table, you're useless. And a lot of our young brothers is in the joint. Even the young sisters now, they go in the joint. Why? Because when they were supposed to be going to school, they were going through school. So now I'm a young man. Me and my baby got together that night. We clapped together and we made a baby. I look at that baby, the baby peeing up in the air. I look down at him, he looked just like me. And your lady come up and said, you say, you know, baby's hungry. There's no food in the cabinets. He needs some new Pampers. Now, that's your baby, so you got pride now. I got to go out and do something. I got to do something to show my baby I'm the daddy, I'm the winner. But what can you do? So the first thing you say, let me go get my Roscoe. Let me go wait in the bush and wait for somebody to go to the instant teller. I don't want to hurt nobody. I just want to take care of my kid. But you go there, you nervous, the people that you pull the pistol on, they nervous. And somebody make a move, next you know somebody shot. Now that little baby that you see peeing up in the air, 25 years before you see him again, if you see him again. Why? Because I chose to go through school opposed to going to school. You have the opportunity to communicate that to your boys, to the girls out there, let them know. You don't have to go that way. See, because once you go behind the wall, ain't nothing I can do for you. They used to write me, tell me, Mr. Collins, write me back. Man, I can't write you back. I told you before, don't make the mistake, because if you go over the wall, I can't do nothing for you. And you know why I can't do nothing for them? Because there's too many of us out here that I'm trying to keep from going over the wall. You feel me? It's your responsibility. I was a young guy, 23 years old, and most of you guys are older than I was at the time. 23 years old, I had a baby, I had a young wife, and I go to the Olympics, and I'm doing what I feel is the right thing to do. But I got penalized. And I just came to the realization, maybe a month or so ago, that I am a liability. Now, check it out. I'm a liability to the man in the mirror. You know what a liability is, right? Like a detriment, right? Now you say, how can I be a liability to the man in the mirror? Well, they got Shaq out there, they got Charles Barkley out there, they got Dr. J out there, got a lot of people out there that's cozy with the establishment to conform a certain way, to be projecting this certain way that they perform to you. So they get top dollar. But they tell them, say, hey man, make sure that you don't associate with John Carlos. Why they don't want them to associate with me? Because I'm gonna speak the truth. Okay? So man, I respect you for what you do, John. I love you for what you said, John, but I can't roll with you. And it's a deep thing when I had to come to the realization of that, man, that I'm offensive to my own people. But then whoever the creator is came to my mind, he said, listen, man, it's deeper than you. He said, you think Harriet Tubman didn't feel that way? Think Paul Robeson didn't feel that way? Or Nat Turner? All of them felt that way. Any activist, no matter what your ethnic background is, feel alienated because you speaking truth. And certain individuals I don't care about truth, I care about the Benjamins. And if you sit back and you think about those Benjamins that I'm talking right now, they have a master plan to make you think about nothing but the Benjamins. Don't care about yourself, just care about how much money you got in your account. Like I was telling the good professor here that they had a situation where Mr. Kanye made some derogatory statements. They say, now whether his statements derogatory or not, I don't know, because I ain't researched it. So I ain't gonna say yay, I ain't gonna say nay. But he made a statement and Shaq got up, because Shaq is a mouthpiece. Shaq got up and made the statement. I don't have to listen to nothing you say, Kanye. Okay, you don't have to listen to nothing you say. Why don't you have to listen to anything he say? You know what his response was? Because I got more money than him. Now, did that determine whether you have some intelligence, wisdom that you're trying to pass along? I shouldn't listen to your wisdom because I got more money than you. You can't tell me nothing. Well, that's what they're doing with young black individuals in society right now. They're making you think about the Benjamins. You think about that minute grain of sand opposed to the big picture. It's your responsibility, man, to kick your mind off and for you to start thinking outside the box for yourself. Why? Because I'm telling you about who your friends are and how you can communicate with your friends. Think about how many young babies is looking at you right now, trying to check you out, trying to see whether you in your own little cubicle and won't come out, trying to see whether you have any concern about whether they get a chance to get out the hood and do some good with their life. Because there's not a whole bunch of us reach back to help these youngsters. Very few do. Systematically, they like that. Because if you ain't helping, there's confusion. Confusion leads to going to school or going through school. Large percent of our kids go to school, they don't know why they're going to school. It's almost like they're saying, I'm going because my mother make me go. So you don't get nothing out of school? You don't get nothing out of school? I said, man, if you don't like school scholastically because you don't like the teacher, you don't have to be in the teacher's face every day. You can go straight over to the library, pick a book up, and everything that teacher's trying to teach you, you can teach yourself. But the question is, was you disciplined enough to do that? And most of us are not disciplined enough to do too much of anything because there's so much confusion around us, so much static around us. Right? You know what the greatest thing is about a team? A team starts out like that and it winds up like that. You know what I'm saying is, here's 5 individuals on the team. They can't work separately, but they do work separately. What I'm saying, they can't work separately because they're a team, but they must work separately to say, I can work on my job, my responsibility on this team. Whatever my job is, I can't be concerned about what your job is. I expect you to do for your job what I'm doing for mine. And that's when it turns from this to this. We still got same 5 individuals, but it's one solid mass. That's what I tried to illustrate in Mexico City with the fists. It wasn't about the fists. It was about the whole composition of the fist. Here's 5 individuals. There's 5 individuals. One of them say, man, if I move that table from here to that other side of the room, I can make a tremendous difference for society. The best for everybody, and minorities get a big boost. And he jumped down, man. He pulling on the table, he tugging on the table, and he can't do it. And his boy tells him, man, you know, you was doing a pretty good job, but you couldn't get it over there, man, because you got to put your hips into it. Let me show you. And he jumped down, and he can't do it. But after the second guy go down, the 5 of them come together. And then they become this powerful base. Now we move the table, we can move the building. Because we on the team together, we working as a team. You look at the tank, what's more important, the cannon on the tank or the little spring that raises the cannon? Which one is more important? Each one of them is equally important. If I got a cannon and the telescope don't work, how do I know who I'm shooting at? If I got a cannon and I think I'm the big part of the tank because I'm the big gun, and you the little spring. Everybody like, oh, man, you ain't nothing, you insignificant, you just a little mediocre spring. But when they go try and raise the cannon and move the cannon over, they can't do it because you ain't there to do your job. They thought your job was so minimal. See? So everybody has significant purpose. Whether it's education, whether it's life, whether it's raising your kids, you have a purpose. And the purpose is to have a plan. You understand? Just like when they build these cities, they have like a 25-year, 50-year perspective. Someone comes with a theory. Oh, let's put it on paper. Oh, it looks good. Oh, we got to go get the money. So, all right, in 25 years, we got everything. So we can put out the first boulevard, the first strip, the houses, businesses down that strip. They don't just come up and say, oh, let's throw up these buildings and shit. They got a plan. You have to have a plan about your life. What happens after school? What do I want to do in life? Do I just want to go get any job? Or do I want to be specific in the job that I want to get? How many guys here have seen their friends have someone come to their house talking about, I'm the athletic director, I'm the head football coach, and I want to come to your house and talk to your parents about you coming to school? It happens every day. But the problem is that minority parents don't know the questions to ask the coaches. Like, man, what did the school offer my son? You understand? What grades does he have? My son wasn't that good in school. Who's going to help him get the standard? Raise up to that standard. Understand? Oh, and incidentally, coach, I heard from a cousin or a friend of mine that they said her son went to school, never took a test. Somebody took the test for him. So when it came time for him to graduate, everybody graduated, got their cap and gown on, they feeling good. And they tell him, say, well, man, you don't have enough credits. What do you mean I don't have enough credits? I've been here 4 years, I passed everything. Well, let's go back at the roster and see what you passed. Well, you had 2 semesters of archery. Anybody want a job as Robin Hood? Okay. Oh, I got 2 semesters of swimming. Backstroke, I'm going to go to the Olympics. I got 2 semesters of wrestling. Now, they might be setting you up, but I asked you one before earlier, do you think out the box and say, nah, this ain't right, man. I'm going to school and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing on the track. But as far as my scholastic work, man, I ain't getting no English. I ain't getting no science. I ain't getting no math. How you gonna graduate? How you gonna even project in your mind that you're gonna graduate and you know that you're not getting the main course meal? And it leads down right there to I said when your parents had to come in, if your parents don't know what to ask the coach, what do you know about asking the coach? You feel me? It's so many things out there that you guys can figure out yourself. But you gotta turn your mind on, man, and start clacking. You want to be a leader or you want to be a follower? They got many, 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 many followers out there. Okay? But being a leader, you got to have true grit. You have to have the mindset where you say, man, more than me getting upset about something I don't understand, I have to sit back and try and figure the equation out. What's going on? Let me figure it out. How can I make this situation a better situation? My life has always been, from the time I was a little boy, I always had the idea that whatever God throw my way, I can't throw it back to him. So I got to deal with it. Somebody I love dearly, they die. Might be a heavy thing on my mind, but I got to deal with it because I know I got to carry on the mission that I'm on. Everybody's on a mission, but everybody's not in touch with themselves. You know, I told Michael Jackson years ago, and he came out and he did a movie, video, Man in the Mirror. I told him, I said, man, that's the problem for us. We never get in touch with ourselves. Let me tell you a story about how that came about. Back in the 50s, junkies used to come on the roof. We used to go up there and fly pigeons. They used to be up there shooting drugs. So we would go up there and see our pigeons, but when they're shooting drugs, we go up there and mess with them. They would chase us, man. We had about 6 to 8 feet. We'd run, jump from one roof to another, laughing at me while you're gone. And one day I went up there and I asked the guy, I said, look, man, I got a serious question. Why do you shoot these drugs? Oh, man, don't ask me no stuff like that. No, man, I really want to know, why do you shoot these drugs? And I always remember it was 2 sisters. They looked like they might have been from Africa. They was like blue, black, just beautiful. And both of them became junkies. And I said to the dude, I said, man, did you see the girls downstairs? Man, you remember how fine they were? Look at them now. Why are you shooting these drugs? And then the dude looked at me when I said to him about them girls. He looked at me and he said to me, he said, do you really want to know? I said, man, that's why I'm here asking you. He said to me, he said, man, he started a conversation. He said, did you have a girlfriend? I said, I got a couple, 2, 3 girlfriends. He said, well, listen, man, I had one woman. I was crazy about her. But I was so shy, so scared, so timid to go over and approach this girl and let her know what I felt about her. He said, so I ran through this imagination in my mind for 5 years. He said, I finally got courage to approach her. And I told her, I said to her, I said, listen, I said, I like you. And I think I'd like to spend my life with you. He found out that she was having the same vibe he was having. So they get together. And when they got together, he told me, he said to me, he said, John, he said, you know, I was so happy and so in love with this woman. He said, man, I'm gonna be the best father. I'm gonna be the best breadwinner. I'm gonna be the best husband. I'm gonna do the max. When you're in love, that's what you wanna do. You wanna make sure your family got a wholesome situation. He said to me, he said, you know what happened? He said, man, my daughter came home one day and she said to me, she said, Daddy, my birthday's coming up next week. Remember what you told me about my birthday? What's that, baby? He said, she told me that I told her I was gonna buy her a dress, a brand new dress. And back in my time, girls didn't wear the pants like they wear now. Every girl wore a dress. If there's only one dress in the house, Mama wash that dress every night and iron the pleats out to make sure her daughter can feel good about herself going to school the next day. Daddy, you gonna buy me that dress? Yeah, baby, I'm gonna buy you the dress. She leaves and he gets up and he walks down the hall and he put his hand in his pocket, man, ain't nothing in his pocket but holes. Before he could digest that, here come his son. And his son said, Daddy, my PE teacher told me if I don't get some shorts and some sneakers and a t-shirt, I'm gonna fail PE. Now it's running through his mind, it's affecting my kids' education. I need some sneakers, Daddy. You gonna be able to give me some sneakers? Yeah, son, I'm gonna get you some sneakers. He walked down the hall again, he put his hand in his pocket, he got bigger holes in the other pocket. And he said, oh, Lord. Before that's done, his wife come and said, baby, we've been married for 15 years now. Our anniversary is tomorrow. What we gonna do? He don't have money to buy his wife a rose. And then he said, you know, I got to thinking about my life. He said, I thought about it all the way to this mirror. And I'm looking at him like, what mirror? What are you talking about? He said, man, do you know everybody on the planet get up and go to the mirror, brush their teeth, gargle a little bit, wash their face, do their hair. Every single day they do it. He said, you know, I never looked in the mirror at the reflection of who I am. I never had no need to until my kids started asking me for things that I couldn't provide for them. And then he said to me, he said, you know, John, I didn't like the man in the mirror. And I looked at him being young and dumb. I said to him, I said, man, what you mean you didn't like the man? You didn't like yourself? And he said, no. I said, why? He said, man, I couldn't provide for my daughter. I couldn't provide for my son. I couldn't provide for my wife. And I can't provide for me. He said, that's why I'm up here shooting these drugs. He said, because I'm trying to escape from who I am. You understand? And I said to him, I said, man, let me just say this. You can always come out the hole if you have the desire to come out the hole. They can't keep you in if you want to straighten your life out. Can't nobody live life for you. You can only live life for yourself. And I'm telling them that, and I'm a young boy telling them that. I say, tomorrow's always there, man, and anything can happen tomorrow. You got to make up your mind today as to whether you want to change your life tomorrow. And then I began to realize over time is how deep that is in terms of us as young blacks. We don't even know who the hell we are. In 1950s, 1940s, 1930s, 1920s, we had grandfathers, great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers, grandmothers could tell us our lineage. Now, your great-grandfather, he was so-and-so. This is what your great-grandmother did. She was the first, she went to college here. You ask a kid today, say, man, where your mother from? They couldn't tell you. Where your grandfather from? I don't know. And a lot of them will tell you, I never met my grandfather. I never met my grandmother. So what do you know about yourself? Nothing. I get up, I go through the routine every day, but I don't know nothing about me. I don't know nothing about my family history. Well, what could you tell me modern day? My daddy's in the penitentiary. So are you telling me that that's all you know is that your daddy's in the penitentiary? Did you find out why he's in the penitentiary? I said, because if you don't find out, man, eventually you gonna follow his trail because you got it so lax that you think it's cool that your father's in the penitentiary. And you gonna follow suit. It's your responsibility to wake them up. Wake them up, say, man, don't waste your life. Don't throw your life away. Okay?